Okay, we're live. Good. So, welcome everyone. This is Crucible Tarot. It's a pleasure to have you here. I'm going to switch things up a little bit today. I'm going to actually do a reading based on the Magnum Opus process of alchemy. And if you haven't had a chance to look at the kind of long waffle that I've had about this entire subject, I can include that in the description box in this particular broadcast. But what we'll do, I have actually decided to look at this spread through the Black Moon Lilith Oracle deck. This is from Adma Sisse. She is quite learned scholar in the art of the Black Moon Lilith, which talks a lot about the places where we feel shame, the places where we find our greatest strength in becoming independent and working through the shadow self in order for us to really understand our true nature. And oftentimes the black moon is the point where the moon is the furthest away from the sun. So when we're completely devoid of the light of the sun, its warmth, its vitality, we have to find our way back. And that is precisely what that process kind of entails. We're going to look at 4 different aspects of this deck because it's actually divided into 4 categories. We have Black Moon Lilith categories in each of the different zodiac signs. We have aspects like conjunction. We do have a few others like exhalation, calcination, which are kind of like different aspects of the entire process. And then we go into the planetary ones, which we'll talk about in the 3rd stage. And then finally, we'll have the 4th stage, which encompasses different archetypes present within the mythos of this particular deck. So each of these stages will actually look at it in terms of the 4 stages of alchemy, which is Nigredo, we have Albedo, then we have Citrinitas, and then finally, at the end of that, we'll look at the Rubedo stage. So, looking into this, we'll give it a shot. This is the first time doing it, so I'm just gonna try and see if it works. Before we get started, if you like what you see here, please be sure to give a like, share, subscribe. Please ding the notification bell so you don't miss updates. And furthermore, block or report any scammers. Simple as that. Now, we'll go into this. Now, again, this is for people who are going through a healing journey, who want to discover their shadow self, and who want to do the shadow work necessary for you to integrate yourself. Again, using the Jungian concept of individuation, it's when the shadow self meets the conscious self. So the unconscious meets the conscious. There's a reconciliation between the two, and then that creates an individuated and authentic whole self pieced together by the 2 aspects. So let's get started. The first one we have is the Black Moon Lilith in Taurus. You are worthy. So with the Black Moon Lilith in Taurus, we have an aspect of ourselves which is based on understanding our sense of self-worth, shame felt due to our body, maybe the way that we had our formative years as well, like in the ages between 2 and 5, the terrible 2s, as they would say. And we also want to look at things in terms of finances or wealth or money. So I'm going to just channel all of this. I could particularly use the instruction book, but I'm going to channel this so that I can get a more concise message. So looking into this, what I see is that there's a person here who is struggling with either their feelings of self-worth, feelings of dysphoria, like either body dysphoria of any kind, or particularly of something dealing with something that happened to your body in the past. So it could be even a disability or even a traumatic event that is related to that injury, any kind of abuse, things of that nature. And when looking into this, we find that everything connected to the second house, wealth, finances, sense of self-worth, worth seen in other people, and so on, that is the part where we have to do a lot of our healing. So with the Black Moon, Lilith, and Taurus, you're actually looking at this. You're trying to find your sense of self-worth despite all of this that's taking place. And it can feel quite visceral because this is all related to your physical self, because it is in Taurus. We oftentimes find that throughout our lives, we have several themes. We have themes of, constant financial lack, difficulties finding the right job or finding jobs at all, saving money, and actually building a foundational legacy for yourself. So anything pentacle related would encompass in this. And sometimes you may have to go through periods in which you are laid off, or you run into issues with the authorities within your job space. And this can be one of the running themes. Another running theme is constantly looking at yourself as if, your sense of self-worth is always beneath other people, or it's difficult to see what you contribute to the whole of society. And in looking at this, it's important for us to understand that our sense of self-worth is determined within, and then we have to show it empirically in the outside world. So whatever it is that you choose to see as your sense of worth, whether that is through the physical expression of money, jobs, or even working through and focusing on your traumas, it is important that you understand the true value of your life. And everyone has value, and it is important for us to see how that value plays out in the real world. So it's important for you to give that some thought. With the Nigredo stage, this is how you are breaking down. These are the constant situations that you find yourself in that lead to the sense of, breakdown in your life. So it's always started by this pinprick of trauma that you have to face. And then through that process, that is when you start to, your life begins to break down. You find that, you feel a lot of stressors in these particular cases. You may find that it's a difficult way out, but this starts the process of your journey. This is how the universe is actually initiating your authentic self through the Black Moon, Lilith, and Taurus. Through that, you'll actually be able to work on more authentic projects. You may start a new business of your own in order to make your own money, or a side hustle, things of that nature. You may start to look into those traumas and see where you were enabling abusive people, or particularly how you may have had financial situations in the past in which you maybe didn't see the types of things that you needed to do in order to, rein in your finances. Maybe that was spending less in certain things, spending out of a trauma-based reaction, as a coping mechanism. Some people will go shopping because of traumas that they faced in the past. And what that will in turn do, that will cause them to, either hoard objects or items, or it can potentially cause them to, just gamble, things of that nature. People who gamble especially are dealing with the highs and lows of their internal world. This, what they were talking about, a reward system that is reinforced in the mind because they're, coping with depression, previous trauma, things of that nature, which in turn feeds an addiction, which is oftentimes predicated on not just wins. So even when they don't win a lot of money, a person doesn't win a lot of money. If they have a gambling addiction, they will also look at the lows as well. And it reinforces the loop of risk reward. So those are different ways that it can manifest, especially in Taurus. So breaking down through that phase of your life will then come to the albedo phase, which is where you're distilling things into their purest form. And this is conjunction. What it says here, becoming whole again. And this is, again, what we talk about through the alchemic process. We are learning how to become whole in the sense that we are reuniting with our authentic self. Now, oftentimes through this period of the Black Moon, Lilith, and Taurus, even if it's relationship based, where we have low sense of self-worth within our relationships, and we don't see how we can contribute to the unification with another person, it is important for you to see, even in the absence of another person, that you are an entirely whole, authentic self. And this must be reinforced within your mind in order for you to see your true value. This requires you to go deep within, deal with all the buried clutter within yourself, and then find ways to express yourself, head and heart, mind, body, and spirit, or even finding ways to connect with those aspects of yourself, like your finances, like your personality, like your even your past traumas. And that is where you start the process of looking at what you're actually connected to in this world, in this lifetime. And with this, I almost see it like a kind of card that looks like the Lover's card from the traditional Rider-Waite, if you can see that. And with that conjunction, it's the unification of opposites that takes place in the alchemic process. And even when we look at books like this, like the Kybalion, we talk a lot oftentimes about the law of correlation. So when we talk about conjunctions, we see how we correlate to the issues that we are faced with. So, for example, you have a gambling addiction. You say to yourself, what are these things that are causing me to gamble? What are the things that are triggering my desire to gamble? And then that's when we can start to look at it in that case. When we want to look at ourselves in the sense of what can I do to make money where I don't need to be beholden to a boss or things like that, you start exploring your talents. You might even start a YouTube channel, which is conducive to you and helps out people in the outer world, even people that you haven't met before. So having that audience can show that you do have value and worth. Yes, certainly you can quantify it using likes and views and things like that, but it's really going to be a long process. I mean, even with this channel here, I mean, I have been doing this for about 3 years and it's growing, but I don't try to look at it in the case of, well, I only got a couple of likes, so no one gives a shit and things like that. You just have to keep at it. It's a process that you have to integrate within your daily routine, your habit. Even if there's really nothing to talk about, you can make something. I just created this spread within a matter of minutes. It was just like, let me see what I can do new with this. And that's how you can discover new ways to express those talents. And so even if you're looking at it in the case of a relationship, it could be a time in which you need to speak with someone that can help you to see your sense of self-worth so that you can contribute more to the relationship, or, find out what you shouldn't be doing in your relationship so that you don't overgive. And by creating that sense of balance, that will also allow you to look at your life, look at your relationship in a sober manner. And then that it will in turn allow for you to approach the relationship from a more realistic perspective and viewpoint. So those are just some ways that can manifest there. So we go finally into this citrinitas stage. Yeah, I think that's the way you pronounce it. We're going into that stage. We look at the next card, which has come up, which is Mars. This is about drive, energy, and passion. So we're now coming to the stage in which we are beginning to integrate with an authentic self, and slowly moving into that part. And after the period of distilling everything about yourself into pure concepts, we're then now moving it into the concept where things are beginning to grow. Things are beginning to materialize and to take shape. So with Mars, drive, energy, and passion, this is saying that once you are aware of the target that you have set within the albedo stage, the second stage, which you are looking at the polar opposite, or you're looking at the aspect of yourself that you're beginning to question, to analyze, and things of that nature, then it's time for you to look into how you can use your Martian energy to then approach those things. What am I going to need to do to start a YouTube channel? I need to go ahead and put it online. I need to go ahead and design the backgrounds, the logo, and all those things. I need to go ahead and start to study how algorithms work, how keywords work, things of that nature. It's putting in the energy, the effort, and so on. And oftentimes, when it comes to people who have issues with their self-worth, many of the people will struggle because they like to take a passive approach. Because they don't feel worthy of doing something, they won't make the effort in order to make themselves understand what kind of work is required for you to bring something into fruition. And it takes Martian energy. That Mars drive is precisely what is needed to fuel the dialectic process from one stage to the next. We look at certain things like this. When we look at Mars, Mars is actually the planet of Samael, Archangel Samael. And yes, the reason why it's a roughshod kind of planet, and an archangel, by the way, who has to do a lot of the dirty work because it takes action in order to do that dirty work. It's about the force, the drive, the necessity that is required for things to take place in this world. And when you exercise, you're using adrenaline, you're using your testosterone and other things that are connected to Mars, which would allow you to hit that new bench press, goal, or allow you to run that extra mile, or to, all these other things that you would need to do. In the case of making money, it's about being prudent and learning how to take action on your finances, setting budgets, finding new ways to invest your cash. It's finding new ways for you to express your talents, which you can then convert or monetize in a way that is going to help pay you off, help pay off in the future. And so it's all about now in this Saturnitis phase, where we're looking at the integrative processes needed to bring about the ideal manifestation in the very end of this whole process, which we will get into next. Now, finally, we can look at the last card. So this is the rubella phase. This is the final stage in which we are fully integrated, whole. We have completely changed through the alchemic process by integrating the abstract and the negative in there, which we call the concrete. This is the Hegelian concept of that. We have Adam. Adam is the dark divine father of creation. So he is the reflection of the masculine expression of the divine in the physical world. So as Eve would be the feminine expression of that, Adam would be the masculine expression of that. So ironically, when we look at this card, if you look at the bottom left of it, you see a cow, and that is your new Taurus self. Interestingly enough, so when we have Black Moon Lilith in Taurus in the very beginning, that cow is still there. It's present at the bottom left again. And here we see him back where he needs to be. Amazing how that works out, isn't it? So with Adam is, of course, an interesting thing is that Adam is, of course, the first male expression of the divine. But if we look closer at the etymology of the name Adam, it actually translates to red, which is interesting because we're in the rubella phase, which is the phase of red. Red is also indicative of the Mars or the passion that is required to bring yourself into this phase, according to the spread that we have here. So essentially what the universe is telling me now is that through the efforts, the Martian energy that you put into creating your desired outcome, you then start to embody it and to emanate it. So you then become the Adam of your existence. You create the existence that you feel is going to be more ideal, rather than in the past passively waiting for this to take place or ruminating over it because you feel that there's no way out. So it's by confronting that shadow self, you can then tap into the authentic self. And again, you have concepts of Samael and Lilith in this, Archangel Samael, Black Moon Lilith in this. And they are often seen as cohorts. They're seen as, divine masculine and feminine in the shadow realm. And the shadow realm simply refers to the unconscious self that we need to confront in order for us to get into our fully integrated selves. So oftentimes people will look at that in the klipoth, which that will be a topic for another day. But once you emerge from that klipoth and you are fully integrated again, you find that you have gone through hell and back, literally, or at least alchemically, to finally raise yourself and your condition into a fully authenticated, expressive self. So in doing this, you find that if you go through this process, you go from the Black Moon, Lilith, and Taurus, understanding your worth, uniting with the ideal that you seek. This is why in manifestation, they say you have to behave as how you would be if you had that thing. If you don't have a love relationship, then you have to behave as if you're in a relationship. If you don't have money, you have to behave as if there's already an abundance within yourself in order to have that money. This is why conjunction would be a part of that, because you're recognizing yourself as a whole entity that does not have lack, and that is merely a matter of the universe shaping itself to your will in that sense. Now, that is pretty much the spread. I think it was quite interesting. I'm going to keep this into, I guess, the types of spreads that I read on in the future. Hopefully these will be helpful, and I can try to do this maybe once a month. But yeah, this has been your Magnum Opus Spread. Thank you very much for listening. I hope it's been helpful for you, and I hope that you, on your alchemic journey, currently, that this will be of some use for you. And especially as we have entered into the Chiron and Taurus season, this is where we're going to be doing this. We're going to heal that process. So it's not like Uranus and Taurus where we were getting our asses handed to us by the universe, and we were finding that it was very difficult. We had a lot of these changes we needed to go through. These were quite disruptive and abrupt changes as well. But in this particular phase, we're healing all of that had taken place in the past. Anything that had to deal with all of the problems that you needed to rectify throughout that Uranus and Taurus process, you are now moving into the Chiron and Taurus. And this is one way that this is going to manifest for some people. So if this resonated with you, feel free to leave a like, share, subscribe, ding the notification bell, and let me know how these processes have been manifesting for you in your life. Going to leave it there. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Until next time, VIAM, GEVURAH, AMBULO. Bye now.